Hello everyone. Good evening everyone. Today we have our guest speaker for this session of JWoC. Till date, JWoC has held many sessions. So today our session is something different. It is a collaborative session between Appwrite and JWoC, and it will be basically focused on Appwrite and Flutter. So today we will be introducing to our guest speaker, Mr. Tanmoy Karmakar. So before knowing, let us introduce to our speaker. Tanmay Karmakar is a Flutter developer, Flutter mentor. He has pioneered in cross-platform applications uh, and has articles on Flutter at Medium and Udemy. He has also organized workshops and events on Flutter. Now, talking about the experiences, uh, he is a senior mobile 3 engineer at Tide. He has past experiences at SAS Labs and JWoC, and moreover, he is also a co-organizer at Flutter Kolkata and brand ambassador at Device. So, I hand over the mic to our guest speaker, Mr. Tormay Kompa.
Okay, thank you for the introduction, Avigyan. Okay, so in this session, we will, before I start, I would like to ask everyone, is my voice clear and audible?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so in this session, we will understand how to get started with Flutter and work with backend as a service such as AppWrite, as well as how to contribute to open source in these fields. Okay, so let's
Okay.
get started. So in this session, we will have a clear idea about how to get started with Flutter, what are the advantages, and who uses Flutter, how to get started in it, and intro to a BaaS platform. It's a BaaS as in backend as a service. I will also tell you what is it exactly and how we use it, and then we will see how we can contribute to an open source Flutter projects and useful links to get started, and that's it, right? So a small here, Avigyan has already given the introduction, so I will not take much time here. So currently, I'm working as a senior Flutter developer at Tide, and with that, I'm also a co-organizer of Flutter Kolkata and a Upright Hero. So that's a small introduction from my side as well, and let's get started. So, what is Flutter? Before I say I tell you how it works, I would like to know how many of you are currently working as a native Android developer or iOS developer, or maybe working in mobile app development in any form. You can raise your hand using the emoji section like this, or you can also mm, share an emoji like this. Anyone else? So Avigyan has been working. Other than that, okay, Gaurav, it's there. Okay, that's great. So then I would assume that you have not started with Flutter or any other mobile development front. So I will keep it very basic. Okay. So let's say you want to create a mobile application. There are two specific part where you have to build. So if you are working for Android, you will be using native Android platform such as Android Studio. You will be using Kotlin as your code base, okay, or else you will be using Java for your application. So that only caters towards Android development. And the next part is iOS development. So in iOS development, you will be only building for an iOS system for iPhone, iPad, Mac OS. So in that case, you will be using what you use in iOS. It's Swift. So you will be using Swift as your code base, right? So what that does basically, it limits you to a particular platform. You will be limited to either iOS or you'll be limited to either Android. Okay. So in order to like go ahead from that, like not to stay fixed into one platform, Flutter gives you that opportunity. What is Flutter? It's an open source framework by Google So they have built this as an open source platform where you can use Dart as your code base, and you can build application for mobile, Android, iOS, Mac, Linux, and as well as web. So doesn't that give you a handful? Like, you don't have to learn anything else, you just have to write in Flutter, and it will, you can either make a website, you can make a Windows application, we can also make multiple application. So that also gives you a power to build anything you want, right? So that's what Flutter gives you. Okay, we will know how, what are the basic advantages of Flutter. So Flutter is very fast and responsive. So you, when you start with your application development, you use native code. What it does is it natively compiles your code into your device platform, right? So there is no latency, you can say the performance is very fast. So what Flutter does is it takes the Dart platform, it compiles directly into native code, other, which is not done by other platforms such as React Native. So that is a big advantage is what Flutter has over React Native and other platforms. So before I tell you what are the advantages, I'd also tell you what are the competitors of Flutter there, right? So hybrid app development is not only limited to Flutter. If you are JavaScript developer, you might know of React Native. You have been also using that. It also gives you the same functionality of creating hybrid applications, right? So, but Flutter is different in few ways from that. So basically, what it does, Flutter code compiles to ARM or Intel machine code as well as JavaScript for fast performance at any device. So basically, what that means, it means that the code of Flutter that you write is natively converted into the platform code, which make it much more as par with your native development. Okay, we have hot reloads in your application. So what is hot reload? Hot reload is basically means if you make some changes in your code, it will instantly get updated in your application, right? You have also, if you have been working in website development, you will know this. If you run a live server, if you make any changes in your code, it will instantly update that in your website. Similarly, it does in Flutter. In Android, what you have to do is you have to restart the application in Android Studio to see the changes, which takes some time, and it takes your development time, like it extends your development time, right? And the next thing would be one code for all, which I have already told you, like one code for all the platform, either it be a Android, iOS, web, native, or anything else, right? You can also make software for embedded platforms such as a POS pin, like POS machine, right? If you have been following Flutter forward, you will see that they come out with new ways to run Flutter application, right? So this is the very big advantages of using a Flutter as your code framework. And then it's backed by a huge community. If you see the current market reports, you'll see that Flutter has been used like in all the platforms, and most of the companies use it, and the community is growing as fast as possible. Okay, so these are the few companies who has been using Flutter as their code base, right? We have Dream 11, we have eBay, we have all these companies. Then you have, of course, you have Google. They are using it in Google Pay that you already use. Then our company Tide, their platform is also built in Flutter. Is there anyone who can name any one or two applications that they know is being used in Flutter? They can type it in the channel. Let's see how many of you knows any applications that is currently being used in Flutter. Let me start first. I would say Tide for my current one, which we will be working. So let's write few names. I will give you examples, like there is Google Pay, then there are what do you say? You have Cred, yeah, BMW. They use there for application. Something else? Anyone? Um, there are more. You can say, yeah. Do you know PUBG also uses Flutter as their backend, as their front end? How many of you know that? No, so PUBG also uses Flutter for their front end application in some parts, like their chat. So in the what's in their Flutter Forward 2023, they have shown showcase that. Yeah, Alibaba. That's a great thing. Okay, so now that's great. So let's continue. So how to get started in Flutter, right? So if you have worked with other native thing or anything, you might think that okay, I have to have a good laptop, I have to have a very powerful laptop, i7 i9, to run the emulators and all sort of things, right? But mm, for Flutter you don't need anything, any of those. That's what compelled me to start with Flutter development during my college days. So what we simply have to do is we have to just go to a website. So let's go to one website. Okay, just tell me when it's visible, right? So okay, let me stop sharing and then we can continue. Okay, so in order to run Flutter, you just have to go to flutter.dev. Okay, and from this website, is my screen visible? Okay, okay, you're in. I see. Yeah, right. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, so in order to run Flutter, you don't have to have a very big system or very fixed system. You just need a normal laptop which can run VS Code. So what you need to do is you need to go to the Flutter website. Okay, and then you just have to go to the Get Started option. If you have a Mac, you can directly download the Mac zip or the Windows zip. So once you do that, for me I have a Mac system, so what I will do is I will go for Mac. I will just select any one of those, so as iOS, and then I will download the zip folder. Okay, so here you can see there is a zip folder which you need to download. You can click on it and this will download the actual Flutter thing into your um, computer. And then you just simply need to go to the folder where you have that code. Okay, and then for development, so I have created a Flutter folder. This contains the Flutter zip files. I have decompressed it, and then you just need to copy the bin folder link. Okay, and paste it in your JCRC file. So for iOS, for this is for Mac. You just need to go to your home, and then there you will have to find the JSHRC file. Okay, it would be a hidden file. So when you open it, it will look somewhat like this. Okay, these are the path. Like in Windows we have environment variables, this is similar. So here we just write the path of the Flutter bin. See here we have export path, and then we give the Flutter bin folder name, and that's it. Your Flutter is ready. Flutter. So now what you can just do is you go to terminal, you can open a terminal, and then if you write Flutter doctor, it will show you the current version of Flutter that you are running. Okay. Okay. So in the meantime, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand and I can help you with that. Okay. So let's wait for a few seconds. Flutter Doctor terminal. We can also open one project. Okay. So what I will do here is I will also open a new terminal, new window. Okay, so Doctor Summary is running now. So it will list down all the values, or let's say which Xcode you have, which Flutter version you have. all those things will be listed down through this part. If you want to run your app in a emulator, you can download Android Studio, or for if it is in Mac, you have to download Xcode. But if you want to run it in simply on your device, you can just connect the device through a USB cable and run the and you can enable USB debugging, and it will recognize the device here. Okay, so now what I will do is I will go to CD desktop, and then in order to create a Flutter project, we will write Flutter create, let's say JWoC app. Okay, and then we press enter. What this will do is it will create a project folder, project structure for our application, which we can easily run in an Android emulator or a iOS emulator. Okay, so we can close this one. You can see we have a JWoC folder. We will open this in VS Code. Okay, okay. So we will not deep dive into the coding. We'll just see how we can easily run it in multiple devices, and that's it. So that you can have a simple idea about how it actually works. So what I will do now is I will just open a new device. Okay. So let it analyze the project, and then we will click on this no device, and then I can start a simulator, iOS simulator. Once I do that, it will run a iOS simulator for me. In order to get this, you need to have a Xcode install in your device. Okay, and similarly I can also do open a Android emulator. I will do that after this.
If anyone has any questions, you can ask in the chat.
I have the comment window open, so anytime you have a question, I can check it and get back to you. Okay, so now in order to run our application, what we have to do is we have to open this lib folder, and then we have the main.dart file, which is the entry point of our application. Okay, and then you just have to run this using either a Flutter run command in terminal, or else you can just press F5 and it will run the project. So you can see here that okay, so this is not showing it. Let me just make it little bit smaller. Okay, yeah, so if you see here, the device that has been selected is iPhone 15 Pro Max, has this simulator. So now I can simply press F5 and this will run the project. Okay, and we'll see the app running in few seconds. Okay, so basically what the uh, starter project gives you is a counter application where you have a button and you can just click on it and it will increase the counter. So we'll see it's running in no time. So during this build process, what happens is that it converts the code into the specific platform requirement required, and then it will run the application in your simulator. If we go through the coding or the folder structure, you will see that there are multiple folders named Android, which will have the native Android code. Then we have the iOS folder, which will have the native iOS code, as well as Linux, Mac OS, and web. So, and then Windows. See, all those platforms are into one project. You can run this in anywhere you want. For the first time it takes time because it generates all the file as a complete new thing, but after that it will take less time because all those files are already generated. Okay, so with that, let's wait for a few minutes and then we will continue.
Question.
Okay, can you please explain what build context is? Yes, sure. So build context in Flutter is basically you can say build context contains all the required data about your device. So maybe you are running it on a so you are running it on an iPhone, right? The size of that device you will not know, but build context has all those data into it. So if you go to the build context code, you will see that you can have, like, it's a you can say it's a storage where you have all the data. You can just uh, click on it. You can just, from that you can write, say, media query of context. So of that data, you can say it contains all the device data. So you can use media query, you can use any other read command to get all those data, extract those data out of it. An example could be media query of context. So build context is the same thing, context. So we write as a context. So it of context dot size dot something, which will give you the exact size of that device from that storage. It's a simple word, like, you can consider it as a storage. It has all those other ability to, you can use, if you are using dependency injection, you can use context dot read, and then you can get the data from the widget tree of that context. So those are the things build context provides. Anything specific, if you want, you can elaborate on the question and I can give you the answer for that. Okay, so see, the app is running in your iOS device. You can also run it in your phone. We can click on it and it will increase the counter. So let's say I want to change the color. So from deep purple, I can just say red. And what will happen is that when I save it, it will automatically hot reload it and it will change the color. So see the fast processing of the Flutter framework. So, okay. So similarly, if I want to run this on a Android device, I will just close it. I will just open a iPhone, Pixel 7, maybe. Yeah. So I think this is already created. So now, if in order to build a Android emulator, you need to have Android Studio installed. So similarly, see, a new Android emulator got started. I can just reorganize the area. Okay, let me just click on home. Most of the times, Android emulators uh, have few glitches, so we need to bear with that. Okay, so Nitish, if you so I clear with the build context. If you have any other questions, you can ask. Okay, so it seems we have few issues with this. So let's close the app. Okay, I see what's the problem. Uh, Maybe, yeah. Hmm. Okay, so some, due to some reason, it is over. You can say zoomed. So I will just close it. What I will do is, instead of running it in a emulator, I can just run it in as a website. So if I press F5, it will also run it as a website. I'll just force close it. Yes, much better. So in debug console, you can see all the things that are happening in real time. You can see it is running the lib underscore main lib slash main dot file. Okay, so it's already running. So see, with a single piece of code, it will also run it in a browser. How cool is that? See. Okay, so now that we have understood what is Flutter, we can move on with the next thing. Okay, so the next thing would be understanding what is BAS. Okay, yeah. So what is BAS? BAS is backend as a service. Why we use that? Let's say you want to build a application for your project, right? You want to build a CRM for your college project, but you only know one thing, which is, let's say you only know Flutter for now. I will assume you guys know Flutter, but you don't know backend development. So how can you use it? You will not be able to build your backend by yourself, right? So what backend as a service provide you is it provides you with backend services which you can easily use in order to build your integrate it with your front end. So those are pre-built solution softwares for server related functions and simplify the app creation process. So one of those is Appwrite. Since we are working with, or since we are talking about open source projects, open source everything, so this is one thing which is also open source. Appwrite is a open source backend as a service platform which you can use with your Flutter application in order to like bootstrap your project from ground up. So what it does, so what are the features it has, we will discuss about it. Okay. So before we discuss about the exact dashboard, I will tell you what are the exact features or what are the very few features which are very essential for your development. It provides authentication. You need to log in as a user, which is unique. You need to use Google authentication or a phone number password authentication, email and password authentication. You can use Appwrite. They provide 30 plus services, GitHub and all those OAuth services you can integrate with Appwrite. If you want to store some data, some documents or anything, you can use the database. So it is a scalable and robust database backed by the favorite technologies. These are some as very fancy lines we say, but it's a simple database. You can use it to store your data. Then you have storage. In your code, in your application, you need to store some file or uh, upload image and profile picture maybe. So you can upload those image into the storage and you can store it. You will have the URL for that. And then it's function. So what is function? A function is something which you can run completely on the server, okay, and it will not affect your application working. Let's say you have done a login, you have created a new user, and then you need to verify that you need to create few data and you need to send a verification code. You can just run a function and it will automatically do all those things which you have coded in the backend or in the server side, and you don't have to make any feature or you can do not need to add any code in your app side. So front end, and this works completely in the backend server. Okay. So now we'll go to the first feature which Appwrite provides, which is authentication. Okay. So we will see how authentication works. So we will go to the Appwrite cloud dashboard. So okay, now how open source, like why we say Appwrite is an open source thing and you should use it, because in Appwrite you can use two type of method. Either you can host your own code, you can download the Docker image and then run it in your Docker, and then you can use it as your backend. Or else if you want to also use it their online system, which is the Appwrite cloud, you can also use that, right? So we'll go to the website. Once you log in, you'll have a dashboard similar to this. Here, since we are working on a project, so the project that we just created is JWoC. So we just write JWoC app, okay? And this will create the project. We will select one of the like the region. They also focus on which data security. So you can have your data specific to a single state, right? So let's go to this GitHub JWoC app. Okay, so this is a dashboard that you will see when you create a project. Then you need to just add a Flutter project or any other project that you want. Also, if you don't want to use the SDK that they provide, you can also use the API key and webhook, and you can implement it anywhere. It simply works like a API. You can just do a API call and it will do the work. So if you go to the authentication, you will see that it has a dashboard something like this. You can go to the settings, and here you see all the OAuth providers that are provided by GitHub, that are provided by Appwrite. So here you can see Amazon, Apple, and all those things that you want. Okay, you also have email and password, phone number, magic URL, anonymous. You just create an anonymous ID. Some, let's say you are using an app like Hood or something, right? they have the anonymous login thing where you can anonymously post anything, right? So then you have team invites and JWT token. So these are the features that they provide in the authentication section. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to simply okay, someone has a question maybe. Okay, I will continue then. So if we create a user, maybe you can create a simple user using the name, email, phone number, and password. You can directly create it from the dashboard, or else if you want to create it from your app, you can just use their SDK. So you can add Flutter SDK, you can add a Flutter project, and then you can go to the project. You can add the SDK into your Flutter project. Okay. So the next thing would be the database. So if you have used other database backend as a service, okay, if you have used MongoDB, you would know how document type storage works. You will create document and then you will store all the data related to your project. In Appwrite, you can create tables. So you can, if you have used SQL type tables, you will know that. So let's say we create user table. Okay. And then you can create a custom ID. We don't want to use a custom ID, so we'll just create a table. Okay. Now inside the table, you can create collection. So now from the user table, you can have multiple collection. Let's say Google user, phone, normal Apple user. So you can create collection. So let's use a Google users, and then we'll create a collection in this. Now in the collection, you can add attributes. So attribute can be name, size. You can give something 512, maybe something. Then you can give the default string if it is required. So you can add these things. Yes. So one question is more or less it's like Firebase service. Yes, Firebase is also a backend as a service, but it is closed. It is closed source, like it is built by Google, and you cannot make changes to it according to your liking, or you can contribute to it. But in Upright, you can run it as your own server in Docker. You can host it yourself, or else you can directly use their cloud architecture. Okay. So name, we can write an integer, let's say age, and minimum can be 0, max size can be 100. Okay. So similarly, you can create your own table. Okay. So now in the document, if you want to create a document, you will just write the name. Let's say we write Tanmoy Karmakar, age, we can write something 23, and then next, and then save. And this will create the document. Okay. So this is a use of the database. And then we have the next thing, which is storage. In storage, it's simple. You can upload your files and you will get a URL specific to that file, and you can refer it to any other place. So I'll just show you how it looks. This is the dashboard. You can create a new bucket, let's say profile image. So profile image bucket, and then inside the bucket you can create a file. You can upload a file up to a size of 5 GB, which is so it's a starter plan, has a maximum upload size of 50 MB. Okay. And there are pro plans which is used by companies, and they would update to the plan, right? For us, we can easily use it for free. Okay. Once you upload it, it will generate a file ID through which you can easily get access to the files. Next, we have the functions. So now functions would not be a very critical thing which you would use in all your applications, but most of the applications, when you are in a like a higher stage where you have to manage multiple user at a time, you will be using functions to do multiple things. So you can create a function in multiple languages as well. So you can use Node, PHP, as well as Flutter to write your function. So you can use Dart in order to write your functions. So let's say we write a starter function. Okay. um, Appwrite key, so it creates a key, that's fine. Create a new repository, existing repository, let's say new repository. It will create a git. You can connect your GitHub, and then you can select the branch, and it will generate a starter file with it. Okay. So what you can do with this is, let's say you want to process some data. You are implementing chat gpt function with your application. You have uploaded a image, and then you can run that function over that image in order to extract all the features from that image. So in that case, you can use a function in order to have, like, your app should run, not wait for those data to arrive. Your app should be working as it is, but in the background all this processing would happen. The heavy task should be uplifted by the functions. Okay, so yeah, that's it. Here, now, how we can implement Appwrite into our Flutter application, right? So a simple, three line code will do the trick. What you have to do is you need to go to the pub dev. If you are using Flutter, you will know it's like it's npm. So you have all those data. You can, if you go there, you will see there is multiple packages which you can implement in your application. You will search for Appwrite, and then you will get the Appwrite package. What you do is you copy, you will get, what you have to do is go to the prospect.yaml file and add the Appwrite dependency. So we just copy it. We just open the JWoC app. We will go to the prospect.yaml file. It is present at the last of this file. Okay, at the last of this folder. And then you will go to these dependencies, and then you will just add it here. What this will do, it will add that Appwrite package into your Flutter project. Okay, so once that is done, you can easily use that package in order to, like, do all the Flutter, you can say, the computations. So what you have to do later is, let's say I add Appwrite here. Okay, it will download the code, or it will download the package. Let's wait for it. Let's go to the Appwrite dashboard. We'll go to overview. Okay, and then we'll click on Flutter. Once we do that, we give the name JWoC app. So now it requires a package name. From where should I get the package name? We'll go to the build.gradle file in the Android, and there you will see that it will have the build.gradle file. Yeah, see, the namespace is your app package name. We copy that and paste it here. We do next. See, it says you add the dependencies to your project. We copy this and add to the Flutter prospect.yaml file, and then you can either do Flutter pubget, or you can just also write this and it will automatically add to the prospect.yaml file. Now, see, these are the few lines. What does it do? It imports that Appwrite package into your code. It creates a client. So every time you need to do something, you need to access the data through a client, and this client is created with the endpoint of Appwrite Cloud, which is the URL of this. If you are hosting it in your Docker, you will have a specific URL, something like 198.162 something, where the provider, service provider, provides, and then the project number, set project, and then self-signed is just for your signing certificate. So we'll just copy this, and then we'll go to the main.dart file, and then at the top, here I will just paste it out here. So material app stateless widget will convert it to, so stateful, you don't have to like take consideration about this. What we have to just do is copy this and paste it out here. Now a thing is, this cannot be done outside your code base, right? So what you have to do is you have to initialize this client as a global variable. Later, when you are working with Flutter, you will know what is global variable, what is a scope variable. And then when your code is initialized in the init function, init state, you will just paste it out. And then this client, what it will do is, this is just a object. Now in this object, you will add the endpoint and the project ID, and then it is done. Now you can use the client in order to do all the other stuff. So now next we can go to the dashboard. It's already set up. And now when I go to the code, you can see now we will go through this code. If you see here, you can see that endpoint is set, project ID is also set in our code, and then we create a database client. We create an object of database, and then from that object, I'm trying to create a document with a database ID. From where do I get this database ID? I can just click on this Appwrite console. We can go to the database, and you see database ID is here. You can copy that and then use it in your database ID. Then you have the collection ID. You can go inside this table, and then you have this collection. So you can take this collection ID, and then you can give a unique ID to the document. So id.unique, and then you can add your data. So when you do that, it will just add the data to your Appwrite database. Okay. So present it in full screen. Okay, fine. Okay. So now we have already understood how to use the backend as a service or Appwrite, and how to use the Flutter. Next, what we will learn is, like, this is like a small way to understand how we can, as a developer, contribute to Flutter open source project, and how not to do it. So let's see how we can do it. So the first thing would be report bugs, right? If you are using Flutter, you are using some packages, everything is open source, right? So you find some issue with that, you report it. If that is a valid issue, then it would be acknowledged by the developer of that project. And once it is acknowledged, and then you can try to fix the issue. So it is like a step by step process. You should not be doing like, if it is bugging you, let's say you have facing some issues, and you report it, and instantly you try to fix it. That doesn't make sense, because maybe you are implementing it in a wrong way. So in order to like fix it, let's you should wait for the user or the developer to understand, okay, so this is a actual bug and it is recognized, and then you can start fixing on the issue. You can fix it, and then this is one method. Then you can also create a feature request. Okay, so you need to, so you are using this Appwrite, right? But there is a feature that is not provided by them. You can create a feature request. They will say, okay, yeah, this is a good thing, or maybe you can contribute to it. Once you are assigned that project or the issue, you can start adding that feature to the package. Next thing is SDK. So what is a simple SDK means? SDK is something which is created for platform in order to make it easy to use that project, or the you can say service. So let's say Appwrite didn't had a Flutter SDK, but it had a Android SDK, or it just have the APIs. So from your side, for your use, you can create a SDK for Flutter, and then you can contribute to the open source community, so that other people who are also using Appwrite but they were not able to do it till now, they can use your SDK to implement that feature. Next, two simple thing is, why no, how not to contribute to open source, right? You should not be, since as a developer, your main focus would be to work on application, or to add on features, not to fix the type mistakes, or the spelling mistakes, or capital letter small letter thing. You should not be adding those things into the PRs, right? So this has been a, also, if you see nowadays, in few days back, there was some controversies with why we should not be contributing to GitHub, like to open source project. Why our project or the PR that we that most of the person make is not a good one to the community, right? So these are the few things which we should not be doing. And also the next thing would be not to like only contribute in order for swags or any monetary fund. Open source is just for those who wants to contribute out of their ordinary work and just want to help others, right? So these are the few things that we should do. So now that you have understood how Flutter works, how you can use backend as a service without even have to create your own backend code, or diving into your let's say backend development, you can use a simple backend as a service structure, and how to start Flutter development or Flutter open source thing. I would think that you have the exact knowledge in order to get started with Flutter development open source. Okay, so before that I would wait. So this was the last slide for the thing, and you can also, so if you have questions about Flutter, since you most of the viewers were not well adapted with Flutter as a technology and they have not used it, I didn't go into the depth of like using Flutter or exact code, so that it is much easier for you to understand. So if someone is interested, in implementing features in Flutter or start using Flutter, you can get in touch using this QR, and you can also book a free topnet call in order to have a one-on-one mentorship. So you can use this. And yeah, that's it. Thank you. And then I think we have a Q&A. You can wait for 15 minutes. If anyone have questions, we can answer that, and then you can go on to your quiz that you have. Avikan, you are speaking on a, yeah. Feel free to ask question, even if it is not specific to Flutter. That's fine. You can ask anything you want. Also, for the slide, if anyone wants it, I can just share the slides with the team, and they can share it. Okay. So we have a question from Nitesh, is which is better, using our own backend or AppWrite? So that depends completely on your knowledge, right? So if you know, you can completely write your backend using any, let's say you are using PHP or using Node.js, and you can write your own backend code, you can completely go for it. But there are most of the developers who don't have much idea about writing the backend code themselves. They cannot write the API. So in that case, backend as a service features like AppWrite and Firebase will help them get started. Like it will, if your app, if you can learn backend and build your app, if it will take 1 year or let's say 6 months, using the backend as a service like AppWrite, you can just bootstrap your project within 2 to 3 months. So it completely depends on your requirement and how you can uh, use it. So another question, Shorebird only generates, Shorebird only generates update APK, or it will also deploy it to Google Play? No, both of them is not true. So if others who don't know what is Shorebird is basically a platform or a service created by the previous developers of Flutter, where they can directly upload a application updates to your current application without having the need to release a new update to Play Store or App Store. So what basically it does is, instead of creating a updated APK or deploying it to Google Play, it has its own server. You have to implement the modified version of Flutter with Shorebird into your application. You have to make a build through it so that it has a connection to their server. And what happens is that whenever you create a patch, it will update the server and it will notify all the apps that are currently built with that version code, so that it will directly get the data from the server and it will update the code. It has a internal structure which is very complex, which we don't naturally go into the depth. But basically, you need to know is, once you create a patch, it will automatically update your current version of the app for the users once they reload the application. Is that good?
Do
Yeah,
you have
right.
any other questions? You can ask them, and then we will then move on to the quiz section.
Right. Yeah, it's more like remote config, but remote config only it cannot modify the code from let's say you just, in remote config you can just receive the data, but from what you can say, from Shorebird you can update the exact Flutter code. You don't have to write if the value is this, then show this. Instead, if you update directly the code, it will automatically get updated. You can say it's an advanced version of remote config. Great. Yep. Okay, then I think that should be it. You can get started with your quiz.
Okay, thank you for the session. And I'm going to share the link for the quiz. This is the Slido code. You can open the Slido website, sli.do, and then you can enter this code. There is one more question. How secure my data is in AppWrite?
So Apprite mainly focuses, so they are GDPR compliant. Few days back they have got the compliance certificate, and also in Apprite you can have security rules which you can set up in order to secure your code, and you can also encrypt your code in the dashboard. You have the ability, you can check the encryption data, and it will encrypt your code. So you have the sort of basic requirement for security which you need, and you don't have to think about the security when you are like using Docker and uploading it into your server. So that is also it. You can use any of the method. Yeah, you can continue now.
Yeah, I'm waiting for everyone to join this Slido link. I hope everyone has entered their names. So you can enter your answers, and these are all one answer correct. Okay. If this the first question was always a basic question, so I hope everyone has entered. Oh no, Tanmoy sir, do you want to explain why this was not the correct answer?
Yes, right. We can do that. So Flutter is basically a open source UI framework in order to build your cross-platform application. So the second question, Flutter is a open source UI toolkit is the correct answer. You can say toolkit or you can say framework.
Okay. The answer was list view because in Flutter we call arrays list. I can see why it was a point of confusion, but I'll be moving on. Do you want to explain why this was correct? Because I think everybody is confused in this one.
Yes, right. So here, Docker is simply a containerization, like it's a software which help us set up a backend in a specific container. So whereas Firebase, Appwrite, ExpressJS are both of them, first Firebase and Appwrite is a backend as a service, and ExpressJS is used to write backend code. So Docker is the correct answer here. You can host
Yeah.
app backend built with expressjs in Docker, but Docker is itself is not a backend.
Yeah. Okay. Unlike Java, which supports interfaces, Dart does not support interface, but it does support object-oriented programming. This is an easy one. Okay, this was the final question, and most of you did the correct one. And for the leaderboard, okay, congratulations, Rohan. He scored first. He was first, and then Soham Sarkar was runner-up, and then Somentika Laskar. You guys will get a prize. Where you will be contacted in Discord. Can you guys send me your GitHub ID in the Meet chat? Then it would be easy for us. And Congratulations to all who participated.
Congrats to the winners.
Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you Tanmoy sir to give this wonderful session.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone. You guys can leave.